It's nearly Halloween. Joe and I have been so busy with the house and life that we're not really doing anything this year. So no costumes for us. But there is a member of this family that always has a costume, and that is Pickle. She's previously been a pumpkin, and last year I made her a spider costume out of an old scarf. This year I've left it a bit to the last minute. She could of course just wear her PicklesPaw Halloween bandana, available, link in bio. But I like to make my life difficult. So instead of one costume, I'm going to try and make 4. But they're going to be last minute, ranging from super easy to something a little bit more difficult. Guest appearances also from Zuko, who's staying with us for the next few weeks. So first up, let's start with the super easy costume, a Scooby Doo tag. For this, all you'll need is a printer, some card or thick paper, and a hole punch. I found a clear image of the SD tag, measured the rough size against Pickle's and Zuko's collar, resized the images to match, and then printed them out. One thing I would recommend now that I've actually made this is to make them double-sided. It's fine for pictures, but in real life it can twist around as your dog moves. Cut the tags out and use a hole punch to make a hole to attach to the collar. At this point, you can be done. I decided to do one extra step to protect the tag from the inevitable muck that it will get on it. I laminated the tags. You can do this with a laminator, or if you don't have one, you can just use clear packing tape to seal the card. Now your dog can be Scooby Doo. This costume obviously works best if you have a Great Dane, but I think it's even funnier if you have a small dog like Pickle. You can even match your dog with a human companion costume. Find pieces in your wardrobe to look like Shaggy or Velma, Daphne or Fred. Make it a family costume. Next up, a very similar idea, but this time a Beanie Babies tag. You could do this in the exact same way as the Scooby Doo tag, but to add a little bit more flair. I wanted to make this one from felt. For this you'll need felt sheets and glue. Fabric glue is best, but PVA glue works just as well. I printed out the tags in the correct size again. I cut the tags out, first to get the gold colour as a template, to draw onto the gold/yellow felt. Then cut away the gold so you're left with the red. Use as a template for the red felt. And then finally, the white letters. I flipped the templates when drawing onto the white felt, so the pen marks will be on the back of the letters, and it gives it a cleaner look. Once you have all your templates drawn onto the felt, cut them out. Using glue, attach the pieces together. You can use the paper templates from the previous steps to make sure it all lines up correctly. Leave some heavy books or objects on top as it dries. And that's your Beanie Baby tag complete. Again, I would recommend making this double-sided, so your Beanie Baby looks extra cute from all angles. The next costume is my medium difficulty. It's Max from the Grinch. This one does require sewing. You could sew by hand, but I used a machine to just make this faster. I measured up the rough size I wanted the antler to be and drew a template onto paper. I added a seam allowance of around 2 cm all the way around and cut it out. For this costume I rummaged through my fabric supply to find any brown materials. I decided this light brown, heavier fabric was best, but any fabric or even felt would work. Fold the fabric in half and cut out 2 antler pieces, following the template with the seam allowance. Once cut, with right sides of the fabric together, Sew all the way around, leaving an opening at the bottom so we can flip it back the right way later on. To sew around the corners and edges, when you get to the corner, keep the needle in the fabric, lift your footer and turn the fabric to the direction you want to go in. Put the footer back down and carry on sewing. To attach the antler to Pickle, I used some red ribbon. Depending on how much your dog can tolerate things around their neck, you may be able to use elastic, obviously not too tight, or any other fastenings you think your dog would be okay with. To attach the ribbon to the antler, I sewed it down to one side at the opening we left earlier, making sure not to catch the other side of the fabric. This will keep it securely attached. The next part can be a little tricky, especially if, like me, you have a thicker fabric and a smaller dog, so a smaller antler. But you need to flip the antler the right way out. It will take a bit of wriggling. Use a pen or something thin and pointy, I used a screwdriver, to push out the corners from the inside. Next, find some stuffing. Thankfully, Pickle had recently left the remains of her latest victim on the floor for me to reuse in this costume. Stuff the antler fairly compacted. The more used, the stiffer it will be, so it will be able to stand up on its own. Use the pen or screwdriver, again, to make sure it gets fully into the corners. Once you have enough and the antler can stand up straight without flopping, it's time to close the opening. I find this easiest by hand sewing. Fold in the raw edge and with lots of small stitches, close the gap. I thought I was finished with the max antler at this point, but after a quick try on, I realised the antler would not stay upright. It needed some anchors, almost like guy ropes on a tent. So I just added a few stitches and lines of thread from the middle of the antler to a few centimetres each side of the ribbon. And now Max is ready to go and steal Christmas. It's a very simple costume for your dog, and it makes a perfect companion if you have a Santa suit, can paint your face green, or add a mask, and you can go as a Grinch. The last costume is something a little bit different, and you need to be able to sew to complete it. I call it the wolf in sheep's clothing. Or maybe you could go as Little Bo Peep, and your dog can be your sheep. But I am making a little sheep cap for Pickle. I had no idea where to start, so I just started by making a mock-up, measuring Pickle's head and using an old white sheet to cut out and draft a pattern. The cap pattern is a rectangular piece with length of 15 centimetres, but this is specifically for Pickle's head, and then two matching side pieces where the length at the back is also 15 centimetres. But I made the pattern by draping the fabric over Pickle's head and drawing directly on it. It matches the side of Pickle's head with a long tail for the fastening that will go under her chin. Once I have the basic shape, I can draw a neater and more accurate shape to use as a pattern. I then tack stitched or roughly stitched the pieces together to temporarily hold them in place. This will let me see if it will actually fit on Pickle's head, and I can make any adjustments I need. Tack the length of the rectangular piece to the back of one of the side pieces. Do the same for the other side headpiece. Now when you flip the cap the right way up, you can start to see the shape. Time to try it on Pickle. For this first attempt, you can see it was a little snug. It needed sizing up pretty much all over, and the tails for the fastening needed extending. I thought her ears were making it much tighter, so I measured where her ears sat and cut slits in the fabric for her ears to stick through, which did make it a better fit, but a bit bigger all over and still needed. I made a note of what needed to be bigger, unpicked the test cap and made new pattern pieces in a bigger size, following the exact same steps as before. It fits much better now. Now for the sheep fur. I found this fluffy fabric offcut in my local fabric shop that is perfect for the sheep fur. I do the exact same pattern that I did for the cap. The white cotton will now become the lining, so sew this together with the machine. Same with the sheep fur fabric. Then, right sides together, sew the cotton cap and the fur cap together, leaving the bottom open to be able to flip it the right way around. I cut the ear holes in the sheep fur and sewed down the edges of the holes to keep it tidy. For the last detail, I added some ears. These were 2 pairs of ear shape sewn together, keeping the ends open. Once flipped right side out, add a little stuffing if needed, and positioned into place. I hand stitched the open ends of the ears to the cap. Also remember to close up the gap in the back. I just top stitched this with the machine. And for the last touch, I used some chalk to brush the pinks of the ears. Add in a piece of Velcro onto the tail fastenings, and that's the cap done. This surprisingly didn't take me that long to make once I had an idea of what I was doing. And it looks adorable on Pickle. I'm actually surprised how much she tolerates it. I think all the biscuits I feed her definitely help. And that's all 4 costumes. Some a lot more easier than others, but I love them all equally. And we'll definitely be showing them off around the town this weekend for Halloween. I wonder how many biscuits Pickle will get for trick-or-treating this year.
Need a manicure after this.
Yeah.